You familiar with the story A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens? So there's this guy Scrooge, and he's visited by different ghosts in the middle of the night. And he's not a guy who believes in ghosts. So when the first one comes, the ghost of his old friend Jacob Marley, he doesn't believe it. He's like, "You're not a ghost. Ghosts aren't real. You're probably just something I ate." Because he's confronted with something that in his world is impossible, and he has to figure out how to deal with that. Well, that's the situation that the religious leaders are in our 5-minute devotional in John today, where they're confronted with Jesus doing something that doesn't fit in. They think that it's impossible, and we'll see how they deal with it. And I think they deal with it actually even less well than Scrooge, but we'll find out. John chapter 9, 24 to 34. So for the second time they called the man who had been born blind, and they said to him, "Give glory to God. We know this man is a sinner." They're talking about Jesus. He answered, "I do not know whether he's a sinner. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see." They said to him, What did he do to you? How did he open your eyes?" He answered them, "I've told you already, and you would not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? Do you also want to become his disciples?" They reviled him, saying, "You are his disciples, but we are disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he comes from." The man answered him, "Here is an astonishing thing. You do not know where he comes from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not listen to sinners, but he does listen to one who worships him and obeys his will. Never since the world began has it been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing." They answered him, "You were born entirely in sins. Are you trying to teach us?" And they drove him out. So this is the climax of the person who was born blind, gets healed by Jesus. The religious authorities don't believe it. They call in his parents. They're like, "Was he blind?" They're like, "Yeah, he was blind, but we don't know what happened." What had happened was Jesus had encountered him on a Sabbath and made some mud, put it on his eyes, and healed him of blindness. And this was a miracle that even in the Old Testament and other writings, nobody had cured a person who was born blind before. And so it was this incredible thing. But to the religious leaders, it was bad because Jesus did it on the Sabbath. Even though God had not specifically condemned that, it was part of their rules that such a thing couldn't be done on the Sabbath. So they classified Jesus as a sinner, and they're like, well, if he's a sinner and he's a false Messiah, he can't do miracles. So what else happened here? And they boxed Jesus into this little area where what happened to them was impossible. So with Scrooge came up with some other reason. It was maybe a silly reason, but so in that fictional tale of Charles Dickens, Scrooge actually has like some other answer. The religious leaders here, they don't even have another answer of what could have happened here. And maybe that's why they get mad. I don't know. But, so they don't think Jesus is the real thing, and then they're also mad at this guy because they still have this idea that he must have done something wrong to have been blind in the first place. So they get through this argument with him, and they end, and they say, "You, guy who was healed, you were utterly born in sin. You're trying to teach us?" So not only don't they have any answers, and they've got Jesus all wrong, they're also pretty arrogant. And they do to him the thing that his parents were afraid would happen to them. When it says they drove him out, that's actually excommunication. They threw him out of the synagogue. So he couldn't worship with the other people in the community, and it would have huge social implications. And now this guy's in even more trouble, and that's where we're going to leave him today. But we'll see how this affects him in the future. But this is where we are with him, and the cautionary tale of what to do when God does something that you think is impossible.